Robert, welcome to the show.
Good to be here. Thanks for the invitation. I'm glad we're able to sit down and do this together.
Yes, it's an honor, and I want to give people a history about why you're on the show, how I know you. I am part of a mastermind where you came to talk at one of our events,
Mhm.
and as you were speaking, it was during COVID. I was back in the corner. My wife was pregnant. If you remember, I wasn't really shaking hands. I was just back in the corner, sitting by
I
myself.
remember you because you were the guy back in the corner.
Yeah, just sitting by myself. But every word that was coming out of your mouth, I felt like you were saying my story, like you were reading my biography. Um, you passed out the book, No More Mr. Nice Guy. And I read it and I was like, oh my God, this guy wrote my life story. And so just like anybody who has a terminal disease looks for the specialist, I wrote you an email. I said, Dr. Glover, how much is it to work with you? Let's rock and roll. So I became your client. We worked for about 3 or 4 months together. It was eye opening, and so let's get into the book. Let's get into how you wrote the book, how it came about, and why it's changed so many lives.
All right. Well, yeah, we got to go back quite a bit in time. In my early 30s, I was in my second marriage, and my wife confronted me and she said, everybody thinks you're such a nice guy, but you're not. She says, you can be really mean to me. You can embarrass me. You can put me down. You're passive aggressive. Sometimes you blow up at me. And she goes, you need to go get help. And I thought, I need to go get help. You're the one that's unhappy all the time and angry all the time and never wants to have sex anymore. I said, all right. But I didn't want the marriage to end, at least at that time. So I went and got help, and I landed in some pretty good places. Actually, I landed in a 12-step group, landed with a good therapist, and later a men's group, and began to realize that this image I had of myself as a nice guy had a lot of flaws in it. That I thought, okay, I'm a nice guy. I treat everybody well. I'm generous. I avoid conflict. I tell the truth. I didn't a lot, but I thought I did. And so I started realizing that, this paradigm that I had, that if I'm just a good person, I'll be liked and loved and get my needs met. If I do everything right, I'll have this great problem-free life. Everything will go smooth and never have any problems. And those paradigms didn't work. Now, what happened is that I was kind of beginning to have these realizations about me, why being the nice guy didn't work so well in terms of getting the love I wanted, getting my needs met, giving me the success I wanted. As a therapist, I'm a marriage and family therapist by training. Men were coming to me for therapy, sometimes with their wives or girlfriends, sometimes on their own. And I started hearing two messages from men. From the single guys, they were saying, I'm a nice guy. I treat women well. I'm not a jerk. I listen to them talk about the jerks. And they only want to be with the jerks. They don't want to be with me. And now we call that being friend zoned. That I don't think that word existed back in the day when I started working with those guys. And then they'd say, oh, women tell me, oh, some lucky woman's going to, you're going to make some lucky woman so happy, but they don't want to be that lucky woman, right? They think I'm great, but they don't want. So that was the single guys. What I resonated more with, because I was in a relationship, was the guys that came in and say, I'm a nice guy. I treat my wife well, better than her ex. I'm raising her kids. I give her everything she wants, try to make her happy, but it's never good enough. She's always complaining and she's always angry and she never wants to have sex anymore. I thought I can finish these guys' sentences for them because it was my story. It was my lament and complaint. So I started a No More Mr. Nice Guy men's group. I think back then we met every other week, and that was 30 years ago. And then soon added another one. And I just started writing some little lessons to give the guys about what I was learning about what I called nice guy syndrome, where it came from, how it manifests in our life, how it affects us in relationship, with sex, with work and career. And I just kept writing these lessons every other week when we met. And the men, and often their wives and girlfriends, said, Robert, you should write a book. You should go on Oprah. This could be a bestseller. So over about 6 to 7 years, I kept writing and then, decided, all right, I need to get serious. And how do I put this into a book that makes sense and people could benefit from? So 6 or 7 years to write it, and then took another 3 years to find a publisher. Along the way, a lot of publishing houses big publishing houses, the editors would say, Robert, I like your book. It's well written, but our marketing department says men won't buy a self-help book. And I thought, you don't know these guys. I promise you they'll buy the book. And then I happened to benefit from a bunch of media exposure, mainly because I was just hustling and, calling newspapers, radio stations for interviews. And then it kind of blew up nationally. And so I ended up with a book contract from Barnes and Noble when they were publishing books back in the day. And so the book's been out 20 years now. It came out, I guess almost 20 years, came out early 2003. And book sales go up every year. So apparently men do buy a self-help book and they keep buying more and more. They listen to podcasts like this, they go on forums. And the basic premise of the book is that a nice guy is a person that at a very young age, like a few weeks, few months, few years old, inaccurately internalized emotional beliefs about themselves and the world. And all children do this. It's just the human experience, because every child is born dependent, needy, self-centered, vulnerable. And so every experience that a child has that feels bad. And, if you have kids, they cry a lot when they're little. Well, why do they cry? Because something feels bad. That's why they cry. They're lonely, or they're hungry, or they're cold, or they have a stomach ache. And so that everything feels bad to a child. I mean, of course, they have good experiences too. They're nurtured, they're loved, they're fed, they're bathed, they're played with by their parents. But what happens with children, because they're narcissistic by nature, and because our prefrontal cortex, that is our reasoning part of our brain, isn't online when we're born. With us men, it doesn't come fully online till about age 25. But the part of our brain down on the brain stem called the amygdala, that manages survival. It is the source of the fight, flight, freeze mechanism when we're threatened. It controls respiration and heart rate, all the things that keep us alive. Well, the theory is it stores up emotional memory before the rest of the brain stores up other kinds of memory. So that's why our earliest memories, we can't go back and see them visually, because we're not storing visual memory or word memory. It's emotional memory. So our earliest experiences get stored up in there. It's true for everybody. And everybody inaccurately believes those painful experiences are about them. And so everybody internalizes something called toxic shame. It's a belief, I'm not good enough. There's something wrong with me. I'm not lovable. And everybody has it to some degree, some people more than others. So we all try to manage that sense of not okayness. Now, for nice guys, what they do, and this applies to nice girls as well, because there's a lot of them out there as well. But for the nice guy does two things to manage that inaccurately internalized emotional belief that I'm not okay. Is the first thing nice guys do is they try to become what they think other people want them to be. And then they'll be liked and loved and get their needs met. And so nice guys are chameleons. I mean, not bad people, but not particularly authentic and not particularly honest, because if I'm trying to be everything I think you want me to be, you're never going to know the real me. So that's inauthentic and that's dishonest. I'm not going to say what I want, what I need, what I fear, what I'm feeling, because I got to do whatever pleases you. The second thing nice guys do since childhood, since infancy, is they try to hide anything about themselves that might get a negative reaction from other people. Usually the things nice guys most often hide is their needs and wants, their sexuality, and usually their emotions, especially what some people call negative emotions like anger and fear. We hide that because we think if people see that, they're going to reject us. They're going to have a negative reaction to us. So nice guys are walking around like chameleons, trying to become what they think other people want them to be. Usually they're wrong. And I think you came to realize this,
Yep.
Like especially those of us in relationship. We're trying to please our woman, trying to please our wife or girlfriend. And we're doing all these things thinking that's what will please them and make them happy. And when you really get down to it, they go, no, I don't want that. I don't want you to try to make me happy. I just want you to be honest. I just want you to say what you want. I just want to know you, right? But we're thinking, I got to do this. I got to do that. I got to avoid that. I don't want to upset them. And that's the nice guy pattern. And so this affects us in relationship. It affects us getting into relationship, like with single guys. If they're out there trying to be nice to please women, unfortunately, nice is not much of a turn on for women. Women just take advantage of that or walk on you or don't notice you at all. It affects us in work and career. some things you and I've worked on together, how to be bold, how to take risks, how to be vulnerable, how to risk failing and crashing and burning. If you think, hey, this is a good idea, I got to go for it. But nice guys won't do that. What if I fail? What if I look foolish? What if I lose everything? And so nice guys play it real safe. In fact, I teach an online class called Nice Guys Don't Finish Last, They Rot in Middle Management. Because nice guys, we're good at being good. We're conscientious, want to do things right, but we never blow it up. We never take it to the highest levels because of our fear of being found out. What if I make a mistake? What if I lose it all? What if? And so we just tend to play it safe. So that's the nutshell of a nice guy.
And you talk about that, and I'm sitting here laughing, smiling, because everything that you say, hits me in the heart, because that's how I grew up, right?
Yeah.
Chameleon, always wanting to be somebody else for other people, not being my true self, and then not sharing who I truly am with other people. And then there was a part of the book, if I'm not mistaken, that talked about how nice guys kind of manipulate situations.
Oh yeah,
all the time, right? We manipulate situations so that people, there's no confrontation and people like us. And so we want to have control over everything that's happening, in essence.
And I know that doesn't sound very nice, right? But here's the thing. Nice guys are primarily driven by two factors. In No More Mr. Nice Guy, I talked more about one than the other, but since the book's been out, I finished writing it 25 years ago or more. So I've continued to work on nice guys. With the nice guys, I've continued to work on me.
Yeah.
But there's two key things that tend to motivate nice guys. One is anxiety, and the other is shame. I talked about the toxic shame quite a bit in the book. Since then, I've come to speak a lot more about the anxiety parts of it. So because our needs didn't get met in timely, judicious ways, because we didn't feel safe as small children, that created a state of anxiety, probably almost a PTSD kind of anxiety. We're afraid of being abandoned. We're afraid of being shamed. We're afraid of being rejected, afraid of failing, afraid of looking foolish. So nice guys spend a lot of time in anxiety management. And so, we're constantly licking our finger, holding up, see which way the wind's blowing. And if we're actually trying to manage people and situations so we don't have to feel anxious, that's control. It's manipulation. I'll be what I think you want, or I'll avoid a conflict, or I won't say this if I think it's going to upset you. That's all manipulation and control. And even though nice guys don't want to think of themselves as manipulative or controlling, we are. In fact, anybody that has strong states of anxiety is typically trying to control or manage the things outside of them that they think are causing the anxiety. The anxiety is really within ourselves. Again, coming out of that amygdala, that fight, flight, freeze part of our brain. So some guys manage that just by retreating or withdrawing. Some people manage it by always smiling. Some people manage it by always doing nice things for other people. Some people, a lot of nice guys manage it by avoiding conflict at all costs. I remember in my second marriage when I wrote No More Mr. Nice Guy, my wife could be emotionally like this and could have quite a temper. And so I kind of walked on eggshells with her a lot. And I remember, I would let stuff build up inside of me because I was afraid to bring it up. What if I say this and she gets mad or reacts? So I wouldn't. And I would just subtly try to manipulate, right, the situation to get what I wanted or to avoid, certain things. But after a while, it would build up. And then I would just, something would set it off, I'd blow up. And every conversation I'd ever rehearsed in my head, feeling victimized and arguing my case in front of the great referee in the sky that doesn't exist, everything came gushing out. And my then wife called those victim pukes. It just came out. And when the dust would settle, when the puke would settle, she might say, how long have you been feeling that way? That was quite a reaction. And I'd say, I don't know, 6 months maybe. And she would look at me and say, did it ever cross your mind to just talk to me about those things? And this is honest truth. I'd say, no, actually it didn't. It never crossed my mind that I could actually just talk to you about these things. I thought I had to keep them in and just try to manage things and manipulate things. Now, it took me a long time to really come to understand that. But that was kind of for me, an interesting self-realization to realize I didn't know if something was bothering me that I could actually tell the person, hey, this is bothering me. Can we talk about it? This is bothering me. Can you do this differently? Or this is bothering me. Can you stop doing it? Whatever. I didn't know I could do that. Nobody ever taught me that skill. So instead, I just had to avoid and subtly, not so subtly, manage and control.
And you said it right. I think that when you avoid confrontation, it comes out with this puke, right? And
either that or passive aggressiveness, where we, and that's the indirect roundabout anger where, I forgot, or we show up late, or, we can't get an erection or keep an erection, or we come too quickly. Those can be all forms of passive aggressiveness when you're angry at your partner, or you get involved in having an affair with somebody, or you backstab, or you spread rumor, or you embarrass. I mean, that passive aggressive stuff can come out in all kinds of really creative ways that usually we're not aware of.
I love that. And I think it's, going back to when we were working together, I remember telling you at one point that, when I would have confrontation with my wife, for example, just to be transparent, that it was like 15 minutes of this argument that I would have to get through before we would both open up to the conversation, and how sometimes I stopped myself from doing that. But now that I know that, it's 15 minutes of like hell and shit and fire. And after that, it's going to open up to conversation. I'm having a lot more conversation. And it's especially because of something that you said to me. And I think you said it at the speech you gave. You said that the opposite of nice guy is not an asshole.
No.
What is it?
Okay. And that's the way most people go is, people look at the book, see the cover and think, no more Mr. Nice Guy. Why would somebody write a book teaching guys to be not nice? There's already enough not nice guys out there. And so we men are pretty black and white, and we tend to want a schematic and a diagram and a roadmap and tell me how to do it. Dr. Glover, tell me how to do that and tell me how many weeks it's going to take me to get there. I go, oh, we're going to have fun. But here's the reason why just going from one polar extreme to the other, it doesn't work and isn't going to solve the problem. I tend to see both what I'll call the nice guy or the wussy doormat and the asshole jerk as on the same spectrum of each other. Because guys will say, well, I get it, being a nice guy doesn't work, but maybe I need to become a little bit more of an asshole. Or they'll say, well, but I don't want to become an asshole. I need to find a happy middle ground. And I always tell guys, I don't know where the tipping point is between two toxic extremes. You don't go from this toxic extreme to this one. Oh, there's a happy middle ground between toxicity. There's not. Okay. Yeah. But that's how we think. I got to just do a little bit better job moderating this. But here's the thing. I think both the nice guy and the jerk are both ran by their anxiety and their shame. They just do it differently. And so, for example, if we go back to the fight, flight, freeze mechanism when we feel threatened, and some people have added a term fawn to that as well. And nice guys are great fawners. Oh, can I make it better? Can I do this for you? Wow. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And so it actually fits real well. So the nice guy's managing his anxiety by fleeing, just running away from stuff. Freezing, oh, if I just don't be noticed, I won't be in trouble, right? Or fawning, oh, I'll do everything I can to make them happy. And that's all anxiety management. Okay. Whereas on the other hand, what we'd call the jerk or the asshole, they're also involved in the anxiety management, but they tend to be the fighters. They're the aggressive ones. They're the dominant ones. They're the bully. They're the asshole. But both are just trying to manage anxiety state. So becoming more of one or less of one than the other, we're still driven by our anxiety. So what I teach in No More Mr. Nice Guy is about becoming an integrated male. And then there's a lot of dynamics in that process, and it's an ongoing process, but it usually involves self-soothing, learning to soothe our anxiety on the inside so we don't have to try to manage it on the outside. And if we are self-soothing, we can do a lot of things. We can have conflict. We can risk failure. We can, ask for the promotion. We can leave a relationship if we can soothe our anxiety. So I do a lot of work teaching men how to do that. And I start with breath, just learning how to breathe, because when we're anxious, we actually quit breathing, or we breathe pretty ineffectively. So breathing, grounding ourselves, changing our internal thought talk, all help us soothe ourselves. Another thing that I teach nice guys is start asking themselves, what do I want? Because nice guys don't usually do that. It's usually like, what do they want, and how can I give that to them? And then maybe they'll give back to me, or they'll appreciate me. So for nice guys to start saying what they want, I want to go hang out with my buddies. I want to start a business. I want to go to the gym, or I want this for dinner. So you have to learn to ask for what you want. It's called differentiation, where you ask yourself, what do I want? What feels right to me? What's important to me? And then you follow through on that. Even if you have anxiety between your ears, or people around you give you change back messages. Oh, you shouldn't do that. Or you're going to make God mad, or you're going to give dad a heart attack, or you're going to make mom cry. All those messages that say you shouldn't.
The guilt.
Guilt, the neurotic guilt. That's what neurotic guilt is. You haven't violated your moral code. You violated the code of whatever system you're in that says you're supposed to call mom every Sunday and talk to her on the phone, or you're the bad son. Well, I don't like talking to mom every Sunday because she just complains for hours, but you feel guilty, so you do it anyway. That's neurotic guilt. That's not actually particularly loving. So learning to differentiate, what do I want? Learning to be honest. I mean, that's a big thing with nice guys. I thought I was pretty much an honest guy, but the truth is I framed every conversation. What do I present? What do I leave out? What do I massage? What do I just, what do I distract from? What do I just fabricate? Almost every conversation, I'd be doing that in my head. And it was really amazing when I started paying attention to that. I thought, that voice talks to me all the time. Oh, tell it this way, or leave that part out, or don't mention that, or maybe later you can bring that up, but not now, all the time. And so learning to be honest is big.
Us nice guys become ninjas at that.
Oh, ninjas.
When you mentioned that, I was thinking to myself, conversations I've had in the past with different people, and you're right. We become so ninja-like that we don't even know that we're doing it. Subconsciously, it's happening to protect ourselves, so that we want to look good to everybody. There was a moment when we were working together. I remember, my father had passed away, and I was growing this beard. And you're always like, good, grow it longer and dirtier, because you're always so nicely clean shaven and the hair done. Remember? I remember that.
Yeah, and you're nicely clean shaven. The hair looks perfect. Shirt looks perfect. Background looks perfect.
And it's funny because being a nice guy, it's always deep down. When we did work together, we read the book, it still comes about. I was sitting in the barbershop, I shit you not. And I thought to myself, really, fuck it. I'm going to give myself like a little mohawk just for fun, right? Like one of those thick mohawks, just for fun. And then what came out? Oh, I've got a presentation this weekend and I don't know, and blah, blah, blah. So as we're talking about nice guy, and you said it, you're like, us nice guys, it's very inherent into who we are. It's so deep that you don't just give it up. It just doesn't go away.
Well, and the reason for that is that's why I share that part about where it came from. These inaccurately internalized beliefs about self and the world are stored up in a part of the brain that doesn't have verbal or conscious. It's just reaction, right? But that amygdala is wired into every other part of our brain, and so it creates like the machine language, the operating system that all thought and reaction and action comes from this controlled by other parts of the brain. But because the amygdala and whatever we internalize emotionally about ourselves, I'm not good enough, I'm bad, I'm unlovable, I'm hurtful, whatever. Again, those don't have words. That's why this is kind of hard to explain, because we all want to process things in terms of words, because that's what our thinking brain does. The emotional brain doesn't have those words, just the feeling state. It's wired into our nervous system. And so that's why this is challenging to overcome. I can teach guys a lot about nice guy syndrome and how to change their patterns and be more honest and more authentic and more trustworthy and happier. But what's going to happen, it creates an internal battle between the emotional belief about self and the world and the cognitive information we're trying to put in. And I promise you, that amygdala, because it is about survival, usually wins, right? Those emotional beliefs are hard to kick, especially because we can't look at them or name them. It's just emotion that drives the rest of the brain. So for me, I started working on this stuff 30 years ago. I'm 66. Probably a little bit longer ago than that. I've been to lots of therapy groups. I'm in a men's program now. I've been in it for 5 years, mainly because I keep learning new stuff about me, and mainly not just what I learn intellectually, but I keep integrating new things into my nervous system, my emotional memory. And now I'm more easygoing, I'm more transparent, I'm more vulnerable. A lot of times when I lead workshops or do talks, guys will say to me, Robert, I just really appreciate how open and authentic you are. You know, you'll tell anything about yourself, like you have no embarrassment. I put it all out there. 30 years ago, nobody would have accused me of being open and authentic. Nobody knew me because I didn't let them. And so this is a process. You know, often in recovery work, they talk about peeling the layers of the onion. And I just keep learning more about myself all the time. And I actually like that process. I enjoy putting myself in new or novel situations that they're going to trigger my old emotional operating system, so I can watch it and go, oh, that's interesting. And then begin to do things to rewire that, to emotionally rewire, to overwrite or rewrite the emotional operating system.
Is it packed even harder, you know, talking about Jewish men, when we grow up and our moms are always saying, be a good boy. And there's a special word, you know, be a mensch, right?
Yeah,
you know, you got to be a mensch.
I was going to ask you, is that the appropriate word?
Yeah,
I think your listeners can probably see I'm not Jewish, but
yeah,
or maybe they can. I don't know.
You got that epic goatee going on now. I don't know.
That works. That works. You know, but, this is funny. You know, as a Jew, you've heard all the Jewish mother jokes, but you know, my all-time favorite one is your mother gives you two shirts. And the next day you put on one of the shirts and she says, what, you didn't like the other one? Yeah. And it's kind of like, you know, you can't win, right? You're not going to get it right. But you keep trying because, and I remember, I think first time, or quite a while back, when first time I went to New York and went and walked around Central Park. And, you know, there's some pretty strong Jewish communities in that area of New York. And I'd see all these mensches, the guys, you know, pushing the baby stroller. And while the woman's walking beside him, kind of nonstop talk, you know, basically barking orders and this and that. And the guy's just kind of, you know, being the good guy pushing and I go, there's a lot of Jewish nice guys. You know, it was pretty obvious just visually watching so many men just like, all right, how do I make her happy? Because, you know, you're trying to make mom happy and often you couldn't, but you got to try, right? You're a kid, you got to try. So then we grow up and we tend to do that in our adult life, often in our relationships as well. We project our mother issues, and I do this, I'm not Jewish, but I still do it, project my mother issues onto the women that I'm with and think I've got to make them happy in the same ways I was trying to make mom happy.
One of the parts of the book talked about this and it hit me, and when we were working together as well. You know, I grew up, my father was working all the time. My mom essentially raised me. And so the whole thing was to be able to control the emotion that my mom had towards me and that safety. And so I became a nice guy and did the nice things. But, you know, there was only one time in my life I recall perfectly, when my mom said, even if you don't come home, like, you need to call me, right? So I called her. I'm like, hey, Mom, I'm not coming home. I was in college. Yeah. And she goes, why aren't you not coming home? And I'm like, listen. And I got pissed off. I'm like, Mom, if I don't tell you why I'm not coming home, it's two reasons. I'm either drunk, three reasons. I'm either drunk, I've got to study late, or I'm about to have some sex. So I don't want to say what it is. So just fucking leave it alone and just say, okay, we're good.
Did that work?
It did for like 2 months, and then she'd ask me, I have to bring it back. But you're right.
How come you're not bringing it? You don't love me anymore because you don't come home.
So, but you're right.
It's got to be all about you not loving her enough, right?
There's so much guilt, especially, I mean, the guys that you work with, but in Judaism, the Jewish men and the Jewish mothers, and we're famous for it, that it changes who we are and it stops who we want to become.
It does. And, you know, of course, who we are isn't just about mom. It's, you know, dad's involved in the equation, and a lot of who we are is also natural temperament. Yeah. I think I'm a pretty easygoing guy. At least I like to think of myself in that way. And I remember my mother, who's still alive, she'll be 87 in a couple of weeks, and had a stroke three and a half years ago, but she still lives alone, drives a car, and can't always find her words, so she doesn't talk as much anymore, but she's still sharp. But you know, like the last 2 or 3 women I was in a relationship with, And my mother, like a good Jewish mother, has never liked any of my wives. But she does like my current wife, Lupita, because they don't speak the same language. My wife's Mexican, but the two Mrs. Glovers can spend a weekend together without me if I'm off doing a workshop, and they get along just fine. They're both really strong women, but my wife always wins every battle. And I know who to put the money on, even though my mother's a strong woman. But my mom would tell these women I was dating or seeing, and she'd say something like, out of the blue would say, Bobby never did like conflict. And I go, yeah, thanks, Mom. And who the fuck likes conflict? I'm thinking, why does that make me, why is that a standout feature? But you know what? There are people that like conflict, and I tend to marry them. It's kind of like, I tend to be attracted to women that like to have a good fight. But no, I don't like conflict. I want everything to be smooth. And that's a pretty typical nice guy pattern. If I do everything right, it'll be smooth and everybody's going to be happy with me and there's not going to be problems. But for example, in my business right now, I've been in business for a long time, and I'm in a place where I'm in a situation where I might have to have some conflict with a person. And I've noticed myself not wanting to have that conflict, but I've also noticed myself thinking, fantastic, this is a great opportunity for me to practice having conflict between myself and kind of somewhat of a business partner. And I think this is good. This is good because I still want to grow my business even bigger. And I better get more comfortable having conflict because, the bigger you get, the more you're going to attract all kinds of things, including the conflict. So, but going back to natural temperament, a lot of who we are is temperament. And of course, a lot of it is influenced by those early memories we internalized at a young age and then got reinforced through our ongoing experiences through childhood, adolescence, and adulthood. And yes, a lot of the nice guys I work with tend to have one of two kinds of moms. One is kind of the depressive, sad mom, lonely mom who uses her boy to kind of be a surrogate partner. Come listen to me, come be my companion. I tended to be that for my mother. I was the good man that my father wasn't. Yep. The other kind of mom that I tend to see with nice guys, and again, these are generalizations because there's lots of exceptions, but the other type is more, we'll just call them the borderline or narcissist. The really controlling, overbearing mothers, the emotionally volatile mothers. And so then you're trying to manage, all of that instability as a little boy. So as a little boy is trying to manage your sad, depressed, lonely mother, you have to sacrifice you to be there for her. And if as a boy, you've got the angry, volatile, moody, controlling mother, you still got to try to figure out all the time, what I do wrong? What do I need to do different to manage that? Because we all think we have to. We think that this is about us. And then, of course, we grow up to be adolescents and adults, and that emotional operating system still plays out. And as you said a little bit earlier, it's challenging to move through that. It's challenging just to become aware or conscious of it. And that's why so many, my book's been out 20 years and I still get all kinds of emails from guys saying, Robert, how'd you know me so well? You described me to a T. Now, I'm going to sue you because you've been, videoing my life. Been spying on permission, been spying on me. Well, it's my story. No More Mr. Nice Guy is my story. I was a poster child nice guy. And so the book is really helpful because for a lot of guys, the light just goes on and they go, this explains everything. And now that it explains everything, I understand better now. And there's lots of tools in the book to help you start applying, what you're learning.
Yeah, I have a running partner that we go run with, once a week, and it's been a while, but he was reading the book, and every time we would run, he's like, I did exercise in chapter 4 and oh my God, it was mind blowing. So before we get to, there's so much more to talk about. Just, you've heard about the book. Just, if you got to pause the podcast, go buy the book. It's on Amazon. It's everywhere. No More Mr. Nice Guy. It's outstanding. I want to bring up that in the last couple of weeks, I've been having lots of conversations with Jewish men about them being separated, divorced. And it always comes back to the same thing. There wasn't infidelity. There wasn't some blowout event. They always say to me, like, I don't understand what happened. Mm-hmm. I provided. I was there for our
Yeah.
kids. She had a nice house. We had a good life. I have no idea what happened. And the only thing that I can say sometimes is like, you were a nice guy. That's not what she wanted. You know, she wanted some friction. She wanted to see who you were. She wanted to see your authentic self, and you never gave it to her.
Yeah, and that what you just said is probably confusing a lot of listeners right now. I don't get that. What was he talking about? And you know, the male brain wants to line up ones and zeros. We want to, build the machine, turn it on, and have it run, and it runs forever. And I've got a lot of Jewish friends, and pretty much every Jewish friend I got is really bright. And tests have shown that Jews tend to have a higher IQ than the average population. And so you're thinkers. I mean, you've been thinkers for eons of years. So we think, well, I'll just do everything right. I'll give her, the late model car. We'll have a nice home and a good neighborhood, good schools for the kids, because education's important in the Jewish community. And she'll be happy. Just like we thought if we did everything right for mom, we could make her happy. Now, the real paradox is what we men think will make a woman happy. Often they don't turn it down. Yeah, they're happy to take, the big rock or the Lululemon or fly first class or drive the Mercedes. Yeah, they don't usually turn it down. But if we think that's what's going to make them happy and stay connected to us over time, again, that's just the fallacy of male thinking. And oh man, trying to explain what any particular woman wants, good luck. I won't try to do that. I've been married 3 times. I've bumbled my way through every relationship. Pretty much every relationship I've been in introduced me to something I didn't know I didn't want in relationship. That's why if you bounce from one to the next one, even if the next one's not just like the last one, you'll bump into something and go, I didn't see that coming. I didn't know I didn't want that in my relationship. But in general, the feminine mind and heart wants connection, wants a depth of connection. And while we're like protecting what we share about ourselves, what we reveal, trying to manage everything, the woman feels no connection. Now, the ways that women can feel connection boggle the male mind. Women feel connection by starting a fight. Because if they start criticizing you or bringing up something from the past and you react to it, and now even if you don't like verbally fight with them, if they can see that you're emotionally triggered by it, they're smiling on the inside. I've got him.
All the listeners are like, damn,
he's connected to me. We're going, I don't get that. That makes no sense to me. Why can't we have a good time? And so I know when I got divorced from my second wife in my late 40s. So I'd been married with my first 2 marriages for about 25 years. So I was out in the dating world, the single guy for the first time. I was in my 40s and then 50s. And then I married my present wife, Lupita, 5.5 years ago. So I was probably 59, 60 years old when we got married. And what I started telling women after we'd gone on, enough dates to look like we were going to keep dating each other, I would tell the women, all right, if we keep seeing each other, here's what you can expect from me. I said, I will be conscious. I'll pay attention to us, to you, to me, what's going on, what's needed. I will be honest. I'll tell you the truth. Everything I would say to you will be the complete truth. You won't ever find out I left something out, didn't tell it correct. I said, I'll be honest. I'll be transparent. You'll know what I think, what I feel, what I want, what I like, what I don't like, where I'm going, what I want from you. I said, you won't have to guess. And 4th, I will set the tone and take the lead. I'll show up with a plan. I won't come home and say, what do you want to do tonight? Now, that's not being controlling, but I'll get the ball rolling, right? And every woman I told that to, probably 3 or 4 different women, looked at me and said, that's amazing. No man has ever said anything like that to me before. And several of them said, you need to write another book to tell men that what you're doing. Now, every one of the women, this was a good sign, after I said, here's what you can expect from me. And they thought, okay, this is a good start. And then they would all go, so what do you expect from me? And I said, I got pretty much everything lined up in my life. I got friends, I got my career, I got, great life. I said, just treat me well and make my world beautiful. And every woman I said that to, they're kind of, their eyes rolled back, kind of like that thinking creative side going, how do I treat him well and make his world beautiful? Because they're thinking, if this guy's going to really show up and be conscious and present and in the moment and listening and understanding, and if he's really going to be completely honest with me and completely transparent with me and set the tone and leads where it's not all on me and I got to figure everything out, they're going, I want to stick around. I want to get closer to this. I want to really feel what that feels like, because that's that connection that the feminine craves. Now, if we go to the feminine seeking approval or validation or trying to get them to, fill us when we're feeling needy, they're going to push that away.
Yeah.
And they're going to test us. They want to know, are we man enough to be their man? So if we say we're going to be honest, they're going to test it. If we say we're going to be transparent, they're going to test it. If we say we're going to set the tone and lead, they're going to test it, because we're their security system. And they want to know, again, that, where our strengths are, but they also want to know where we're vulnerable. And so here's the thing that we guys just don't get. Because emotionally, the masculine is the security system for the feminine. The feminine has to know where the kinks are, where the gaps are, where the holes are, where the vulnerabilities are. The illustration I use is that, like, we are the castle, and our woman is inside the castle, and the marauding hordes are outside coming to rape and pillage and burn and steal, and they're all outside the castle. And so the woman, she sees all that out there. She has to go around the castle inside with a broomstick, poking every door jamb, every window, every brick, every stone, checking, where's it weak? Where's it vulnerable? Where am I at risk? And they do that to us. And we think they're picking at us and they're complaining and they're demanding and they're finding fault. Really what they're doing is they're going, is he vulnerable here? Can I trust him here? Is there a weakness here? Or is it strong there? If I do that, does he stay strong? Does he stay grounded? And so that, in my experience, is what turns women on, when we can take that broomstick poking us and not shy away from it, not blow up about it, not avoid it, not tell them they're, not call them names for doing it, and just say, hey, baby, is that the best you got? Hey, baby, come on, bring it all. I want it all. Come on, you can poke better than that. To be able to stay grounded and soothe ourselves while the feminine is poking at us, that is a major turn on to women.
You said something that kind of triggered me, and I want to bring it up. You said, set the tone and take the lead. When I close my eyes and I think about all of my male Jewish friends, and I think about their fathers and mothers, 99% of the time, their mothers took the lead. Mm-hmm. They were the ones who set the tone of the house. They're the ones, ask your mom. Whatever she wants. Happy wife, happy life.
Exactly.
That whole and so it's generational what we're going through.
Yeah.
And what is the best way, the fastest way to look into breaking that generational nice guy syndrome?
I like that, generational.
Yeah,
that's pretty good.
Good slip.
In No More Mr. Nice Guy, early in the book, I say, don't try to do this alone.
Yeah.
We did not become nice guys in social isolation. We didn't just wake up and go, I'll be a nice guy. We became nice guy because of our interpersonal interactions with family, parents, siblings, friends, teachers, priests, rabbis, all of that. And so if we're going to move through and break through and overcome this nice guy syndrome, we have to do it in a social context, mainly because if you have internalized shame that inaccurately says, I'm bad, I'm not good enough. And then we tend to go, find a lot of things to support that. We get hooked looking at porn, or we have the other secrets or this or that. We find proof that I'm not good enough. Yeah. And if you can go be with safe people, a coach, a therapist, a rabbi, a men's group. I'm a big fan of men's groups. You go start revealing yourself. Like I said, I was saying earlier, when my second wife said, you got to go get help. And she kept saying, you're a sex addict. You need to go get help. I thought, I'm not having enough sex to be a sex addict. And so I did. I went to a 12-step group for sex addiction. Quickly did find out I wasn't a sex addict, but it was all guys. So it was my first men's group. And a lot of the guys had some pretty hardcore stuff going on. Right. And the beauty of 12-step groups, you just kind of share what you want to share. Nobody gives you feedback. Nobody says you need to do that or you need to stop. They just say, thank you for sharing, Robert. And so I went to this 12-step group, and it was like met at 6 a.m., once a week. And I actually got excited about getting up and going because for the first time in my life, I started revealing me. I grew up fundamental Christian. I have 2 degrees in religion. I was a minister for 8 years, critical father, grew up during angry feminism in the 60s. I hid everything. And I just started revealing things about me that I'd never revealed, thoughts, impulses, fears, actions. And it felt liberating for people to say, Robert, thank you for sharing. And then got into therapy and started revealing more of me and you get more accurate feedback. Like, we have shame about stuff that we think we're bad because of this. And like, for example, a lot of men struggle with porn and we hide it and it triggers a lot of shame. And I think actually it's not a sex addiction. I think it's a shame addiction a lot of times. And then what if you just get with a group of people and you find out, a therapist, a coach, a men's group, and you find out, oh, you mean I'm not bad for that? I'm just trying to manage some uncomfortable feelings. And of course, it's pretty addictive because we are sexual beings and that's wired into who we are. And I'm not a bad person because I get turned on looking at, images of naked people. And to find out you're not bad. For example, on the subject of porn, when guys would come to work with me and say, I can't quit looking at porn. Then I go, okay, let's sit down and look at it together. I just sit down. If we're in person in my office, back when I had an office, or we do it on Zoom, I say, show me what you look like. Let's do a screen share. Show me everything you look at. And I tell you what, to show your coach or therapist the porn you look at brings up a lot of shame.
Yeah.
But you know what? Every time I've done that with somebody, a couple of weeks later, they say, I haven't even had the impulse to look at it because they released the shame around it. And if people say, listen, you're not bad for that. You're just trying to cope or manage with uncomfortable feelings. That's why you do it. And then whether it's that or anything else that we think I'm so imperfect at, I'm not a good father, I'm not a good husband, or I'm a failure at this, or I'm not good enough at that. When you start getting more accurate feedback as to who you really are, that you're just an imperfect human being, and that's perfectly fine. We can begin to break out of these shame-based behaviors. And then as we also start welcoming things that make us anxious or make us uncomfortable, and most of our ancestors, and the Jewish tradition has a lot of initiations for young boys. Mm-hmm. A lot of initiation is to help boys get comfortable feeling uncomfortable, right? To be able to take risks, to take chances, to go fight the bad guys, to go do something about our comfort zone. And so those are things that we can do. And I found if you can get into a good men's group with a good coach or therapist, and the men's group I was in years ago had a woman therapist because she valued men. And it was the focus was on releasing sexual shame, which I had a lot of it as a fundamental Christian. And now I'm in a men's program, been in it for 5 years. And I just, we were out in Death Valley 3 weeks ago for a week out there. We just kind of built our own little Burning Man thing out there and didn't do any drugs, but just, we did a lot of Kundalini yoga and a lot of connecting and sharing and Qigong and things like that to really connect deeply. And I thrive on that. So we men need men. We need tribe. I mean, this is the Tribesmen podcast.
Yeah.
We need tribe. We evolved in tribe. And now most of us are disconnected from any sense of tribe. We're out there trying to make our wives happy, our mothers happy, our kids happy, everybody happy. No, we need tribe where we don't have to make anybody happy because they love us just as we are. And that's the beauty of hanging out with men, for me anyway.
Love it. I'm gonna end the show there. This has been outstanding. Dr. Glover, if you are listening to this and you're thinking Dr. Robert is saying, this sounds like me, go pick up his book, No More Mr. Nice Guy, or go visit drglover.com. I did it right away. I've worked with you personally one-on-one, and it was life-changing. It was incredible. Robert, honored to have you on. Thank you so much.
This was so much fun. Thank you for the opportunity.
And hopefully you will join us at one of the Tribesmen events.
Oh, I'd love to. You already got me excited about it when we were talking before we went live. How come you didn't invite me to that event? Right. I go, hey,
it's coming.
I'm not good enough for your event.
This is the first Tribesmen Social, May 18th, 5-hour event here in San Diego, just to get together, start the tribe of men together. And then the goal is obviously to have more events where we can bring Robert Glover to give us to hang out with us and give us more in depth. So Dr. Robert,
I'll wait for the invitation. I'll look forward to it.
It's coming. Thank you so much. Thanks everybody for listening. Don't forget to join us on Facebook and the group Tribesmen, Jewish Men Leading, and stay tuned for the next podcast episode.